Let's get analysis now with Peter Zwack. He's the former U.S. Defense Attache to Russia and is also a Wilson Center Global Fellow at the Kennan Institute. It's great to speak to you. Thank you for your time. One of the words being used to describe this meeting is inconclusive, with some analysts saying Trump's leaving Alaska with not much. But from your knowledge and history of diplomacy and long-standing relations between the U.S. and Russia, how did you view this meeting?
Good evening to my Turkish friends. This meeting, there's not a lot to put on it, except that there was a major meeting between the two most powerful men in the world. That in itself was important. However, of consequence, very little was discussed, let alone agreed upon. And the critical issues, besides Ukraine, are other things along the line of arms control and trade issues, and it seems that very little was done. These two presidents, I think, were both very careful. I'm pleased that President Trump was very careful and circumspect and measured in his meeting with President Putin. Putin was Putin, and what he got is he got a meeting. Russia is now a little bit more visible and a little bit more out of its isolation, but there were no, interestingly enough, there were no major discussions about economics and trade issues and minerals, and maybe there was a little bit, but there was a concern that that was going to hijack the meeting. Ukraine is the heart of the issue. Both leaders, I think Putin danced around the issues. He talks always about, the preconditioning conditions there for why the war, why it's going on now, and why the Russians are there. Trump was very careful this time, and I think that that should give the Ukrainians some encouragement, and the Europeans as well. This is going to take a while. If there is a second meeting, and Volodymyr Zelensky actually attends with Trump, that would be hugely significant. However, I believe that President Putin so disdains Zelensky and looks down on him as not a real leader, as he looks down on Ukraine as not being a real country. I would be a little bit surprised if they meet, but we've had a lot of surprises.
We certainly,
so there's much to talk about.
There certainly is, and we have had a lot of surprises. It was interesting that Putin actually referred to Ukraine as a brotherly nation, given their long-standing history. One of the things that we heard from President Trump during an interview with Fox News, speaking about territorial concessions, was that he was in agreement with Vladimir Putin about this, and of course not giving further details. But how would Ukraine be looking at that? Because one of their red lines is that they don't want to have to give up any more territory.
You're absolutely right. And I think that that is Ukraine's position and the position of Ukraine's allies. However, we must all remember that ultimately it is Ukraine's decision on what happens to its lands. And a very good point was made yesterday that I heard. When we talk about territories, it's not just about land. You're talking about millions of Ukrainian citizens. And I'm surprised, and I hope that becomes more in the forefront of the discussion. So this thing is devilishly complicated, a lot of baggage, as we say, but at least they're talking again, and there was some civility in the process.
Yes, and
but I remain yes.
And with that civility that you're talking about, it could lead to another meeting that includes Zelensky, Putin, and possibly Trump here. When it comes to how this is also playing out in terms of the Europeans looking at it, and of course the ongoing attacks in Ukraine, could Putin also just be playing for time while he continues his war on the ground, especially during the summer months as they head into slightly cooler temperatures? There'll be some military goals that Russia may want to achieve before any sort of final deal is made.
Absolutely right, and we are concerned that that Putin, over the last half year in slow walking meetings, that he wants to leave time for his forces to continue their awful grinding offense in Ukraine, especially in the Donbass. That where Russians are dying, 2-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio to the Ukrainians, but it doesn't matter to Putin. So yes, that's happening, and this is so important. If all these discussions manifest into something, and we continue, the free-minded world is what I call it, to support Ukraine with material support, but also moral support. This gives the Ukrainians a key element, and it's just simply hope. They need hope to continue this awful fight. The population needs it, including the soldiers. And we've seen a remarkable national societal fight here, led by Volodymyr Zelensky, and so you are right. The longer that Russia delays, the more killing on the battlefield. But maybe one consequence of all of this that is positive is I want to believe that President Trump, my president, and the Europeans mostly, and Turkey, and other countries are more eye to eye on the nature of what the Russians are doing and what Putin's long game is.
Yeah, absolutely. So much to take into consideration. Absolutely. I'm afraid we've run out of time, but it's really great to get your thoughts and analysis. As always, Peter Zwack there, the former U.S. Defense Attache to Russia. Appreciate it.
Thank you.